part of having the best use of the leverage that we have prior to awarding, to getting as much of that component manufacturing information prior to award. On the light rail side, we're halfway into our commitment of the life of light rail. So for the most part, we're locked into our light rail manufacturer, Kinky Shario, providing any parts that we require. Those parts, especially on the light rail side, take a very long lead time. It is not uncommon for parts to take a minimum of 4 months. Typically, it is a 9 all the way up to as far out as an 18-month lead time. So again, that's a enhanced risk for our agency. Those parts that we order are sent by boat, and that is something that we factor into our decision making. Political workforce concerns, again, we may not know of the manufacturing conditions of, and so that's a enhanced concern. Natural disasters, vendors located in areas of the world that have earthquakes, typhoon, flooding, exchange rates. Buy America, Hire America, we have certification requirements, but again, that's enhanced concerns. And then moving on to solutions. We are implementing some of these solutions now, and some of these noted solutions are things that we'll be working towards implementing to a greater extent. So ensuring that there's known fully understood risk prior to the procurement, not only with the initial procurement, but the life cycle. Contracting options available to the agency is one of the solutions we're looking at, involving stakeholders within the agency to have as much planning throughout the process as possible, determining if we need to carry a higher inventory level to account for that delivery and other risk is another risk. Solution. Looking at bonding and insurance is yet another possible solution. So with that, I've gone through this information very briefly, but again, it was intended to be a quick overview. Please let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, that concludes this portion, and I will turn it over to introducing Thomas Esch and Carlos Oriano will take over.
One moment, Tina.
Yes. Thank you. I just wanted to make a quick comment, and that is that this actually speaks to an issue I raised earlier just about budget management, and that is that I think one of the areas that I think we also need to highlight is how we budget for O&M in these kinds of riskier situations, because if we use a standard method for O&M when we may have higher risk levels for being able to acquire equipment, it means that from a planning perspective, we may need to anticipate where there's potential financial risk, as well as us having to do something ourselves, for example, like making a clip, and especially when we're buying things that are that are going to stay in operation for years and years and years and years and years. So anyway, just as a request to think about. Thank you.
Okay. So prior to turning the next presentation over to Thomas and Carlos Oriano, I want to just provide some background that following the Auditor General's report on the Alum Rock Santa Clara Bus Rapid Transit Project, the board requested a presentation on the alternative project delivery method for construction projects.
Well, good evening. By project delivery methods, we actually mean the process of assigning the primary parties who design and who constructs the project. And when we say alternative project delivery, we're actually referring to alternatives to the traditional method, which is our design bid build. In design bid build, it's actually taking a completed design by an engineering firm. It's a very linear process. Design it, put it out to bid, and award to the lowest bidder. For design build, through a qualifications-based selection process, a design build firm is selected to both design and construct the project, one contract. And by qualifications-based selection, I actually mean price is not the sole factor. In this case, we look at experience, financial capabilities, and also the proposed project team. Also, the contract value is negotiated as the design progresses. There's opportunities to check project costs and along the way, through different milestones, ultimately get into a guaranteed maximum price, which is negotiated with the design builder. Another method available for VTA is actually construction manager general contractor, or CMGC, and I'll be using CMGC through the rest of the evening. This is actually new for VTA. It's a sort of a mix of both design build and design bid build and design build, where the design is actually by an engineering firm under contract by VTA. And then, however, we actually bring on the contractor early through an early qualifications-based selection process, and they're going to be participating in that design process. So like design build, very similar, at that point, the contract value is negotiated with the CMGC contractor, and then and they also construct the project. So why do we use design build or CMGC? Here's some few examples. Some of the reasons are there's actually, with design build, there's a benefit of one point of accountability. They own the design, and they're also managing, dealing with all the construction through the terms of the project. The contractor is also involved in the design process. Significant advantages there. There are also numerous documented cases that well-managed design build projects achieve schedule savings. For example, a contractor is able to do early site work, procure long lead equipment items, and along the way, design is still proceeding. There is also greater expected cost certainty by being able to evaluate costs with the contractors, the whole team there, do some design adjustments, and actually have the ability to contain costs. So there also are expected to be fewer change orders. Now, what about CMGC? The key benefit here is the early involvement of the contractor, which does not happen in traditional design bid build as we have it now. With the contractor on board, we're also able to get the contractor input regarding schedule, further improve that schedule, and also look at constructability issues while they're on board. And similar to design build, there's expected greater cost certainty and fewer change orders. And I do want to point out there is one agency actually through our research does a mock bidding process, which I find very interesting. Along the way at the 30%, 60%, 90% design, there's actually the opportunity to do mock bids of the contractor, along with our own estimators, along with their outside estimating firm, to just do a quick check. How are we doing on our price as we progress through the design? A significant advantage. It is important to note, not all projects are ideal for design build or CMGC. There's our different project approaches in terms of processes and procedures, as well as the staff experiences required to implement these alternatives to a design bid build. Therefore, it's important to have a careful analysis and be certain we're quite clear on evaluating our project delivery methods. In this case, do we choose design build, CMGC, or design bid build?
Good evening. I'm Carlos Orellana, Senior Assistant Counsel, responsible primarily for construction matters. I'm here to talk just briefly about the legal framework for the alternative project delivery mechanisms. For each of design build and CMGC, there's specific statutory frameworks that give VTA the authority to pursue those options. The important takeaway here is that they each have their own limitations and their own special requirements. For example, design build is only available for us to use on transit projects, expressways that are not connected to the state highway system, and also on state highway projects specifically under different authorities. There's also limitations on the types of projects we can use CMGC on, and each one of those has their own requirements for how VTA procures the services of the contractors and also carries with it special reporting requirements.
So this is actually our last slide. Let's just talk a little bit more with all this information. What are our current and what are our planned efforts? Even in design bid build, we are also even looking at innovative procurement approaches. For example, there's some examples I'm listing. I'm not going to get into the details of what job order contracting, cost and time bidding, or two-step proposals. Part of those evaluations do require us to look at, do we have a clear understanding? Do we have the authority to actually implement this? So those are some of the elements in design bid build itself. Current efforts on CMGC and design build for VTA projects, we are also looking at other agency practices with a goal to actually identify those and document those best practices. Internally, we're also having some informational meetings and discussions as well. The goal is there, again, to dive a little bit more into the details of what will it take for us as an agency to further dive into further utilizing these alternatives to design bid build. And going forward, definitely a need exists for having an alternative project delivery strategy. So we're beginning to have those discussions internally, And that just provides an opportunity again to evaluate methods and how we want to go forward. I do want to point out that Silicon Valley BART Extension Phase 2 actually has a separate process that is underway and to determine the project delivery approach. And at this point, this concludes our presentation, unless the board has any questions.
I know it's late, so what I would just request is that if we could get in writing the implications of the change, because I think it's worth a much broader discussion, and I think given that you're an expert in your field and we're not, it will take a little bit of time for us to better digest what you're trying to tell us. Thank you.
And we can do that, certainly. Thank you
Okay.
for that that recommendation. Thank you both, Tina and Tom. I would now like to invite Bernice Alanis. We're going to just show a quick video, or should we dispense with the video? Should we go with the video? Okay, we're going to show a video. Some of you may know that we have, for the past several years, been engaging with all of the employers along our light rail line to ensure, one, that they are in our EcoPass program, and two, more recently, that they're aware of our transit service plans on the changes that we're going to be making so that they can communicate these changes to their employees and help them make better decisions as to how to plan their commutes to and from their campuses or their place of business. So in the interest of time, Bernice had an exhaustive presentation, but in the interest of time, what we're going to do is just show this video, and then at a future date, maybe next month, we'll go over the data on the employers.
What is movement?
Movement to me is really about freedom.
To go places that we need to go and have a wonderful time enjoying the experience.
Movement to me is about getting somewhere conveniently.
It's energy, it's getting around, it's doing something besides sitting on the couch, sitting in traffic.
Traffic wastes time, stresses us out, and keeps us away from our families. It's bad for the environment, and it's bad for business. That's why VTA plans, provides, funds, and builds solutions that move you. Options to get around Santa Clara County so you can avoid the grind of traffic. You know VTA for operating the Valley's bus and light rail system, but they do much, much more.
VTA is part of all of our transportation systems, whether you're in your car or a carpool, on foot or on bike, whether you're on a different form of transit, be that a bus, an express bus, light rail, Caltrain, VTA is there for each of us.
VTA rebuilds highway interchanges, built and operates the county's first tolled express lanes, and built 85, 87, and 237 to keep you moving. And thanks to overwhelming voter support, VTA's 2016 Measure B will provide $6.5 billion more for solutions that move you. This includes VTA's extension of BART into Santa Clara County. The first phase will take you from North San Jose to San Francisco in less than an hour and has the capacity to move 20,000 people per hour. That's as much as an 8-lane freeway. The next phase will extend those benefits to downtown San Jose and Santa Clara.
I'm really excited about the BART extension. As a Bay Area native, I've always wanted to come down here, but with the traffic and the congestion, I never thought to do it. And so when I got the opportunity to work on the project, I was really excited about it. But now that I know that I'll actually be able to ride BART to get down here, I'm really excited about that.
I choose to take transit and bike to school mostly because it's more convenient for me. I don't have to worry about driving.
VTA takes us everywhere. It takes me from my place to the Indian store that I have to buy groceries from. Then it takes me to school.
I love to drive, I love to meet people, and this is an opportunity to go out there and make a friend at the end of the day.
Es muy necesario. El VTA está en todos lados, ¿sí? Y yo lo uso todo el tiempo.
Cycling is something that's doable for a lot of people. This trail that we're on right now, it's the Guadalupe River Trail. It takes me to my job. 99% of my bike ride is on this wonderfully paved trail that's completely away from traffic. I love it.
If there was no paratransit for me, I'd be trapped in my house. It gives you a freedom to be able to go out and visit friends or go out and do things with friends.
We're looking for tremendous increases in people walking, biking, and taking transit, and we really can't do that without the partnership that we have with VTA.
We want our children to grow up in a region where mobility is innovative and convenient, where communities are built around transit, walking, and biking. And these are our primary choices. That's why VTA provides solutions that move you.
The bus is the new melting pot in which we can all make new friends.
So you can enjoy how you get around.
It's green, it's affordable, and it's a thing to do.
To connect communities.
To have a life.
Because I like to have choices in how I get around.
Did you say something?
We'll be sharing this video. Part of our outreach and marketing plan is to do extensive outreach to the businesses. So this is one of the tools that we will be going out with. Really, part of our brand is really repositioning ourselves as a service provider and as a solution provider. So this is what we're showing visually and sharing.
Okay. Thank you very much, Bernice. Are there any questions for her? Thanks. Great job. Truly appreciate that. Okay, our last item in my report is the update on the BART Phase 1 project, and Dennis Radcliffe is going to deliver that.
Good evening. Okay. Oops. Oh, there you go. This is not the, there we go. I'm sorry. The various extension projects, approximately 97% complete. The critical activities have kind of moved away from completing the stations and are now focused on implementing the train control. I'll just go to the schedule where I can speak to that. The schedule that you see here has a number of milestones that we'll be tracking as we go forward. In the line at the bottom there where it says Warm Springs operations, train control, tail track train control. Although Warm Springs is in operation, there are still some work to be done in the tail track area. That work will need to inform our train control design. I believe we will be receiving that information tomorrow. What that will do is it will enable our train control supplier to complete their designs and get it ready for implementation. BART is planning to implement the tail track software and work that remains at Warm Springs on June 2. Following that, in the first week of July 8, we will be installing our train control software in that same area. What that will do, it will enable us to begin dynamic testing, and that is the testing where we will have BART trains involved in testing the train control. We can see that that's going to be a little bit compressed. All of the activities that we are conducting right now are under very heavy pressure to get them done. And to the extent these milestones are moving out a little bit, we're making every attempt to recover. So assuming that all goes well, we should conclude train control sometime in August, getting ready for September pre-revenue testing. This is where BART will be taking on the trains and getting their operators trained, verifying all the train control software from their OCC. And there's about 3 months allocated for that activity. At the conclusion of that, we'll be ready for revenue operations. Of course, the revenue operations date, or the opening day, if you will, would be a function of scheduling by VTA board and BART board. It's late tonight. You've all seen this. There's no significant changes there I'd like to highlight. I would like to highlight that we've been conducting a number of tours to the project. The project is nearing some significant completion and is now not readily, but generally available to conduct tours. You can see a rather large tour here where we took new board members and committee members to the job site. It was a rainy day, but we all had fun. We've also took a tour for our bargaining unit leadership and to get them familiar with the facilities and where they'll be working and those kinds of things. I think this will probably be the last time you'll see photos where this work in progress. What you see here is the final painting going on at Berryessa. The skylights are in. Some of the scaffolding is still there, but you know, the station is coming together day by day. Inside on the upper left, you can see here, this is the inside of the Milpitas station. It's quite an open area. The light you see there is actually natural light coming from the skylight above. On the right hand side, you can see that glazing is going in, sealing up the project. On phase 2, as I've indicated before, we've concluded a single bore study. We have the final draft, and that is informing an independent comparative tunnel alternatives analysis, wherein the previously pursued twin bore design is being compared to the proposed single bore concepts. And the analysis of that is really focused on what are the risks during construction, cost, and schedule. With regard to environmental clearance, the draft SEIR-SEIS is underway. We've compiling the final comments based on final responses based on comments received from the public, and we hope to receive a record decision late this year. Community working group meetings continue, and next are scheduled in June 13 and 14. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. We have one speaker on this item, Roland LeBron.
So thank you, and very briefly, my comment is actually about this slide. As you probably know, I wrote a letter which was addressed to Mayor Liccardo that highlighted a potentially fatal flaw in the crossover design in terms of evacuation. And actually in committee, we had a slide that was presented to the committee that basically does not exist. What was being presented does not exist in Barcelona. And it's actually questionable whether it's actually constructible. That's probably why it doesn't exist. But anyway, the reason I'm addressing you is to make sure that you have received the letter, that you understand the problem, and that you intend to respond it at some point, you know, either in writing or in committee. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Radcliffe, did you want to make a comment on that?
Yes, thank you. As with all VTA projects, VTA regularly engages the expertise of qualified engineers and professionals on the technical matters of our projects. Our BART Phase 2 is no different from that. We have received an analysis from the public that seems largely based on internet and YouTube and what have you, which is a great place to learn these things. But when it comes to fire and life safety, this is not a subject for casual observers. Our experts are among a very small locus of engineers worldwide. This is a very narrow subject of professional practice, and their skills and competence comes from actual practice on actual projects. During that practice, there is typically and almost universally a peer review process wherein professionals in that same practice area scrutinize the approaches every step along the way, so that the design solutions that are being implemented are fully vetted and fully concurred with by that practicing community. Although VT has not begun the design, we have conducted the single bore study that you see here, so that the two different approaches can be compared knowledgeably about, mostly it's the construction and the feasibility of the basics of passenger egress and those related matters. But regardless of which configuration we deploy, the VTA and BART board, the management and the staff, and the public can be confident that all operational and safety requirements will be satisfied without any compromise. With regard to the letter that was submitted, there are some factual errors and some misstatements that I'd like to address. There was a proposed alternative and a crossover that was articulated as being superior to those that are being proposed in our single bore concept. The first matter is that what was indicated in the letter was not a crossover, it's a turnout. Crossover has a different operational purpose, and the crossover designs in the single bore and the twin bore for VTA are essentially the same configuration and they operate the same way. The other matter in the letter, the analysis that was submitted does not demonstrate an understanding of the approach to fire life safety in transit tunnels, which is based on a ventilation zoning of the transit tunnel. And in both configurations, single bore and double bore, this is the approach we are taking. It also confuses the designs for ventilation and passenger egress. They're two separate disciplines, but they're interrelated. In particular, the analysis that was received indicates that the proposed concept for the single bore relies on fire doors that are trainway fire doors and platform edge fire doors. And the concepts that we are pursuing, as I indicated, are reliant on the conventional ventilation zoning approach, and we do not believe those features are going to be needed. And then the last item I wanted to communicate is that our single bore concept has similarities with the transit system in Barcelona insofar as it is a single bore. But as I indicated earlier, every transit project is inherently unique, and the designs that will be deployed will be addressing the unique aspects of that transit project, and BART Phase 2 will be doing exactly that. So we are not replicating the Barcelona design. The commonality is really the single bore, and within the single bore, redundancy is achieved by separating the single bore into separate trainways. So the ventilation approach is generally the same for each. They're accomplished in slightly different ways, but the fire life safety matters are fully satisfied in either case. I'd be happy to answer any of your questions.
Thank you. Mayor Liccardo?
Thank you. Dennis, I was hoping we could just go back to the slide on the schedule, because I know everybody's pushing hard to try to get, could we go back to that slide?
Sure.
Thanks. And everybody's pushing hard to get to the launch date. But I understand there's some factors that are not quite in our control, one relating to delivery of vehicles, and another relating to, I think there are requirements for testing that the BART organization has in their labor contract, that every member of their operations team has to be trained in the vehicles, and I think that's 700 members, and I understand that takes several months to get through before that's satisfied. And I guess the question is, you know, what do we know anything about conversations that perhaps the general manager of BART's having with their workers about whether or not there's a way to expedite that process to get us to a start date, and are the cars going to get there in time?
Yeah. And thank you very much for raising those two matters. I think right now what we're doing is we have identified the 5 milestones that are going to be necessary for us to achieve in order to start service at the end of the year. And 2 of those 5 milestones are within the control of BART, as Dennis has indicated. We will have ongoing discussions as we come closer to each of those milestones. There's ongoing discussions now amongst the staff, but there will be conversations between the general manager at BART and myself as we get closer, so that we are constantly validating and confirming that we're moving down the right path, so that at the end of the day, when we think that we're ready to turn over the keys for operation, there are no surprises. In terms of any discussions with their collective bargaining units, we're not privy to those. We are aware that they have this training requirement, but in terms of what they're currently doing, I'm not prepared to have to share that with you, because I don't know.
Okay. And I assume that would be a conversation we'd have with Grace or someone over at BART about how we could possibly expedite that training.
One of the conversation I intend to have is to identify some of these risk factors. So we'll come up with a register of items that we believe are would need to be resolved so that we can have this successful launch at the end of the year. And that would be on the list. But in terms of how they're currently addressing it, I'm not privy to that, but clearly it would be on the list, and she will make it known whether or not it's something that will affect us in the opening of the station.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Chavez?
The only thing I wanted to add is I would really like whatever those milestones are and what the challenges with meeting those milestones, I think has to be spelled out for the board, just because I think any kind of confusion on our part, we're going to help you solution it, and you might want to
Okay. I can provide more
manage it.
information about those. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to make mention one thing very quickly. We did receive the letter from Mr. LeBron, and we have prepared a response, and that response will be going out tomorrow to both him and the board members. Thank you.
That concludes
Chair.
your report?
Chair.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Sorry. Just to echo on Supervisor Chavez's comments, if we could get that, and I think the sooner, obviously, the better, especially if it looks like some of these challenges are going to, push that date further into 2018. I think, rather than hearing that several months from now or as we're getting closer to the end of the year, that yes, it looks like this challenge of getting the 700 conductors to try to run through the training is going to be a major, and I don't know if that's going to be the major challenge or not, maybe there's others, but getting that information sooner than later I think would be really important for the board so that way we can see what those realistic challenges are.
Yes, we'll be happy to do that. I just want to also note that BART has made it very clear to us that they will be working hand in glove so that we can achieve the end of the year. So they are marching down that path. They are very aware of our schedule, and we are taking all the actions that are within our control to get us there as well.
Anything else? Okay, moving along, before I move on to item 8.2, I just want to remind board members, I know we're all probably dragging here, but we do need a quorum for one of our closed session items. So if you can hang with us here for a moment. Okay, in terms of chairperson's report, I have one item I wanted to make sure you're aware of, and that is that I'm happy to announce that we have received 45 applications for the 2016 Measure B Oversight Committee. And I have formed a subcommittee composed of myself, board members Carr, Chavez, and Liccardo to review the applications. So I'm pleased that we have that many interested parties out there. That moves us on to item 8.3, any items of concern or referral to administration? Seeing none, we're now at item 8.4. Items under 8.4 are either in your packet or part of your reading folder. And I do have one speaker on this, Omar Chatty. And while he's coming up, you can start thinking about 8.5 and whether you have any announcements. Go ahead.
Hi, I've taken my virtual Prozac. Thank you very much. So I've calmed down. Just a note on that 2040 plan. They're doing it in the Marriott, so we have to pay. If you're a motorist, you have to pay to park. Part of this anti-motorist bigotry. But that's not why I'm here. So on the Caltrain issue, Joint Powers Board topic of Caltrain, as you know, I support BART around the Bay, and I hope that someday we'll get some leadership from city council people who will look to the future. It's going to take 15 years. Another 200 people are going to die on the Caltrain tracks, but that's the way it is. So I want to give you just a picture. I got the ramp volumes for highways 101 and 280. That is to say, how many automobiles actually use 101 and how many automobiles on board to 280. So you get 1.2 million automobiles that onboard onto 280 and 1.6 million that onboard onto 101. So we really need, if we're going to use transit and transit's going to work, We really need to get a system that has the capacity to handle that. And if you multiply that out to the average occupancy, it's really 3.2 million people that onboard onto our highways. So if we really want to do that, do you really think that Caltrain in its future 110,000 riders is going to make a difference? You know, BART already Caltrain carries 60,000, BART carries 430,000, and when there's a peak issue that carries 550. So, you know, connecting BART up around the bay, you'll get a dual direction transit system, seamless, no transfers like you do with Caltrain, and safer. So I really hope in the future with the 775 new cars, we can address the 3.2 million people that onboard onto our highway systems to San Francisco in the parallel routes paralleling Caltrain tracks right now. So thank you very much, but if we really want to solve transit, we have to have the capacity.
Great, thank you. Any announcements? If not, we will now recess to closed session to discuss items 9.1A through C. No. I don't want to know this. I'm going home to, if I can stay awake. Okay, we're now back to open session, and General Counsel, do you have a report out for us?
Nothing to report with regard to, for purposes of the Brown Act, but we did want to report that with regard to the Jensen litigation, the reverse validation lawsuit as to Measure B, we were able to secure a victory in that matter and a dismissal of the complaint with no leave to amend, so they have 30 days to appeal, and I wanted to thank Carlos Oriana and the work he did on that matter. That's it. Thank you.
Meeting adjourned.
They were fried.
Thank you, thank you. Over wherever I usually park.